Hello everybody and welcome Region 2. This is a series that we have started called Looking Ahead. We have members from Region 2, some professionals who are on the hangout with us. And I am your host, Victoria Gray, Region 2's Public Relations and Publications Chair for this 2015-2016 term. Again, this hangout is a chance for you, collegiate students, to get to ask some of our professionals from the region some questions about what their career paths were and how NSBE has impacted their lives. If you have any questions that you would like us to ask live, please use Twitter in asking those questions. You can @ us at R2NSBE, and please use the hashtag R2LookingAhead, and we'll try to get to your questions as soon as we can when we go through the introductions. Again, to begin with, we have some lovely panel people here for us to speak to us. So I would like each of the professionals to please tell me your name, what is your professional chapter and your leadership role within NSBE, your alma mater and majors received, current employment, and how long you have been a part of NSBE.
Good evening, everyone. Kenisha Pope, Region 2 Communication Zone Advisor. I hail from the 2016 CIAA Men's Champion, Virginia State University Trojans, where I gained my electrical engineering degree. I also attended Iowa State University with systems engineering. I currently am employed with PricewaterhouseCoopers via Strategy and. I have been involved with NSBE over 15 years. I'm not going to give an exact amount because that will date me, and I'm not doing that this evening. But I welcome you all to this webinar. Please feel free, as Victoria said, to ask us any questions. We're here to help you transition from collegiate to professional. So look forward to the discussion.
Good evening. My name is Tiffani Teachey. I am the National Professionals Programs Chair, and I am with the Charlotte Alumni or Charlotte Professionals Chapter. I graduated from UNC Charlotte, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, with a BS in Mechanical Engineering and my Master's in Engineering Management. I have been with NSBE since 2000, and I currently work with Westinghouse, working as the mechanical engineer. And I think that's about it. So looking forward to being able to allow you to ask some questions about after college. Thank you.
I'll go next. Dashaun.joseph. I am the NSBE Fellows Director of Leadership Recruitment. I have been in NSBE for about 11 years. I'll say the same. I won't date myself too much. I work for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, where I am a solutions engineer. I got my undergraduate degree from Norfolk State University in computer engineering, and I got my master's from the George Washington University in systems engineering. Once again, I mimic everyone else. I live for talks like this where I'm able to kind of explain my journey and answer any questions about, what to look forward to once graduating, and happy to be here and can't wait for all the questions.
I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. My name is Kenneth Williams. I'm a electrical engineer. I graduated with a bachelor's of electrical engineering and from Alfred University, located in Alfred, New York. I've currently spent the past 22 plus years performing various duties as an electrical engineer, ranging from the semiconductor manufacturing industry all the way to my present role as an electrical engineer in the architectural and engineering construction community, which I've been doing for the past 10 years. I'm an advocate of trying to help young folks find that sort of path in their niche in engineering because, quite frankly, my experience was one of where I kind of had to forge my own way. So I like to help people kind of get a feel for what they need to do and where they can head up and how great this career opportunity is if you treat it respectfully. I look forward to all the questions, and again, thank you for allowing me to participate in this forum.
And I guess we can say last but not least, my name is Brian.crutcher. Got my engineering degree in mechanical and aerospace from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I also received my executive MBA from the University of Maryland. I currently serve as the executive mentoring chair for NSBE DC Professionals. Been in NSBE around 16 years. That includes my collegiate years. And very, very passionate about NSBE. Passionate about helping the college students, helping you guys get from where you are to professional level, and even more so to the executive level. So I look forward to any questions that you may have. So as my esteemed panelists have already stated, we want to help to answer any question that you may have to help you get to the next level. Thank you.
All right, thank you again for introducing yourselves. We'll start with the questions that we have lined up for this evening. So, our first question is, if I'm not working as an engineer, should I still become a professional member? In other words, what benefits do you have as a NSBE professional that you believe can encourage collegiate students to matriculate to the professional status after graduating?
Okay, I will take a stab at that one. I'm currently not working, or my job title isn't engineer. But I would say what having an engineering degree has done for me. Number one, being a minority and receiving an engineering degree, people will look at you as if you've achieved a level of success. And that was essentially my case. Being in NSBE allowed me the opportunity to meet other individuals across the nation, other technically minded individuals who wanted to see me succeed. And so by having an engineering degree, it lets people know that you have a sense of understanding how to think critically. So that's opened up many doors for me. Some individuals will take their career technical throughout. Some individuals would like to matriculate into management or understand the business side of it. And that was my mindset to a degree. I worked in the career field for approximately about 5 years in industry. Then I decided, well, how can I take my career to the next level? And so one component I thought was to be able to matriculate into management. And so it allowed my senior leaders to be able to see me as an individual who can think critically, but also an individual who can continue to speak the language to engineers across the board. So that's one way where I would say that I would advise you. And if your career doesn't continue to push you in the level of being a technical person, the engineering degree will definitely enable you to pursue other endeavors along your career.
I'll also add that NSBE actually has one of the best networking of any organization I've been in. There's only one other organization that I'm a part of that I can say has really helped me from a networking standpoint, where I can pick up the phone and I can call someone at HP and say, hey, I have this collegiate student that's looking for an internship, or I have a colleague that wants to get into something at HP. Can you give them some pointers, or do you have any openings, or is there any sort of advice that you can give that person? So I would say above all, networking is key. That's actually how I obtained my first real job, was through networking. I reached out to one of the recruits for Accenture, which is where I started, and that's how I came into my job, was by networking with NSBE professionals to get me where I wanted to go. So above everything, I would say networking is key. If you don't have engineering, if you're not an engineer, but that's something that throughout NSBE you can definitely utilize.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of piggyback on the same thing. I think the key word is networking. Regardless if you're not in the field or if you're not working as an engineer, one of the prime benefits of NSBE and many organizations are related to the science of engineering is that networking piece. I can speak volumes of how many opportunities I've actually received, not the old traditional method of filling out a resume and hope for an interview. Actually, the process related to the process in me getting the job was more a function of knowing someone who knew somebody, and they said, hey, let's give this guy an opportunity. And the rest was on me from that point. But NSBE can give you that networking opportunity, can give you the confidence to kind of go in and essentially wow your interviewer. So all of that is very important when, on this path we call engineering.
Great. Thank you for that. So our next question that we have is, the last statement of our mission is to positively impact the community. How do you impact your community as a professional member?
Okay, I'll take this. I feel like that is key. I feel like as far as giving back to the community is important. I've been living that since growing up from youth up until now, and as a professional, we have to think that we wouldn't be where we are today if someone else didn't pave the way and give back. So I look at it as an obligation. When we talk about positively impact the community, ways that I give back, doing talks like this, going back to my university, going back to other youth, going back to high school, doing hands-on activities. We just celebrated, Engineers Week. Those are the opportunities to really express ways that definitely minorities and youth, I really push that and want to see more of them active in STEM. So I'm passionate about going back, talking to the students, saying that, hey, you might not know an engineer, but after you talk with me, you can now say that you met an engineer. And what gives me that passion is when, for example, when I go to the high schools and go speak to the students, and so many years later, they come up to me at these NSBE conferences, and I see them in leadership roles, and they say, I remember when you came back to my high school and you talked to me. And that's what makes my day, when I can say that I made an impact. And I feel like when we talk about positively impacting the community, we have to think about that. What impact are we making? You don't want to just be selfish and say it's all about you, but you want to be able to make that difference, at least make a difference in at least one person's life. So when I talk about giving back, I'm passionate about it. And philanthropy is key. It's another thing that I do. We look at time, talent, and treasure. And those are some key things when we talk about giving back to the community and positively impact the community. So definitely this is a key thing that I'm all about, passionate about. And I feel like every professional and every college student should be giving back in some manner, because you wouldn't be where you are today if someone else didn't do it for you.
Go ahead and just kind of, one of the things I actually give back in a very unconventional method. I actually coach Little League football, and I kind of use football as what I call an actual recruitment process for engineers. Myself, I played college football, so as an engineering student, I really was almost an oxymoron. It was when people kind of made me feel like that just doesn't make sense. You play football and you like math. That doesn't match. So one of the things I like to do is encourage youngsters in athletics as well as kind of push them into a math or science-based field, whether it's in engineering or chemistry or whatever it be, but just because we all pretty much aware that minorities, specifically black young men, could at certain points in their academic career just really give up and could care less about math, and they develop sort of a phobia, if you will, of it. So my focus has always been to kind of get rid of that phobia in young folks.
All right, great. Next question is the demographic for engineering in the professional world the same as undergrad? For HBCU people, they might not be able to see a difference, but for those who go to PWI school, it's usually white males. Is that the same in your careers that you're in now?
I'll take this one. That's why we're all here, to be perfectly honest. You're right. Unless you went to an HBCU, when you get to your work demographic, you're going to see, we are underrepresented. We know this. We know the facts. We know the figures. And excuse me if I look away from the computer, but I really want to make sure I give you guys the correct metrics. But African Americans are still remaining the most unrepresented demographic and engineering related STEM fields. There are only about 5,500 Black graduates that earn engineering and computer degrees. The problem is so big that I know you guys have probably heard in the news, Silicon Valley, when they had their diversity reports, they were frankly embarrassed. They were embarrassed by the lack of diversity that was represented in their companies. And it's not simply that we're not getting enough or not getting advanced degrees in our STEM fields. It's that they're really not recruiting to those HBCUs or those demographics that actually have African Americans that are excelling in those degrees. I will tell you, being Black and being a woman, I have a double-edged sword when I get into the boardroom. I will say when I first started off in my career, I started off with Lockheed Martin, and I actually got my first job at a NSBE convention with Lockheed Martin. And starting off, I did feel a little bit more comfortable. There were more people in the room with me, but as I enhanced and climbed up the ladder, it became scarce. I will say in a typical meeting of 15 people, there are probably 2 Blacks, and I am probably the only female. You do get used to it, but you understand the problem. And that is why we are here. That is why we're talking, and I feel like that is at least why I feel it's very important to really give back and have that community of support for those that want to excel in the engineering fields. According to a study that NSBE did, about 28% of all engineering degrees were earned at HBCUs. So if companies aren't reaching out to those HBCUs, that is where the talent actually is. As I mentioned before, Silicon Valley, that's where Google and Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard, they're seeing this problem and they're actually looking to recruit more African Americans in these STEM fields because they do realize that diversity is needed. Now, diversity and inclusion is going to be a hot topic that goes around all the time, but I kind of try to look at diversity and inclusion as 2 separate entities. Diversity is, yes, checking that box, saying I have African Americans, I have Asians, I have women, but inclusion is actually inviting those people to the table so that their voice is heard and they can actually be represented and actually climb up on the ladder. I feel like you really cannot have a full diverse culture unless, yes, you have those diverse people, but inclusion, you're including them to those important conversations that need to happen so that you are making a bigger impact to the community. So the demographics, they unless you go to an HBCU, they're pretty much the same, but you will see we are underrepresented. 5%, I guess, of the total engineering fields are Blacks, and you will see that when you get to your work environments, especially if you're someone that's going down an executive path, you will see it starts to trickle down and it gets less and scarce, and you will understand why. But it's up to us to make sure our companies know those HBCUs that are out there. They know that engineering talent. We get involved in recruiting fairs so that we can start to, over time, demystify those stereotypes and make sure that we're represented in our companies, because that's when you make the best products, when you really do have a diverse team.
All right. Next question. What advice do you have for collegiate students who are currently seeking a job or internship? What are things we should look out for in future employment that you believe makes the job a good company to work for?
I'll take that one. Most people, especially the females in Region 2, know that I always tout your brand. And what I mean by your brand is not just how you look, it's how you carry yourself. And it's not just how you carry yourself when you walk out the door. It's how you carry yourself on your social media accounts. It's how you carry yourself in the blogs. It's how you respond to certain situations. I just read an article where a young lady by the name of Talia Jones had a very descriptive commentary of her boss at Yelp, which led to her termination. So I say all that to say, my advice to you is be careful. Be careful who you associate with. Be careful what you comment on. Be careful how you carry yourself, because as Dashaun said, we have a strike against us, or I don't like to call it a strike, but we have something that people look at. We're a minority. So that's one thing that we have to be cautious of and conscious of, is the fact that we have to put our best foot forward. So always be careful of your brand is my advice. As far as what to look for, something that I continuously do throughout my career, and it's changed over time, is I come up with a criteria. What I'm looking for in a company, what I'm looking for in a role, what I'm looking for in a career. What do I want to get out of it? What kind of company do I want to work for? And over time, my prioritization has changed. For me, it's always a culture. What kind of culture does this organization or a company have? Is it something that fits in my ideals, my morals, my ethics? Is it something that I can get behind their brand and really give them my all? That would be my thing there. And in addition to that, we often hear, especially from our BCA companies and others at the career fair, especially at annual convention, is that candidates come up and they don't know about the company. So I would say going back to your brand and making sure that you put your best foot forward is do some research. And you can find out a lot of what the company will actually, if they will actually fit into your criteria by doing just a little bit of research. I mean, we live in a technology age. You can find pretty much everything you need through Google, Bing, and even going back to what I said before, if you use your NSBE resources, we can give you some pretty transparent answers. I am always transparent when people ask me about Accenture or Strategy N or PwC. It doesn't matter, because my philosophy is it doesn't do me or my company any good to give you any falsehoods. So in order for us to make sure that you're a good fit for us, you need to make sure that you're a good fit in the same way. So that's the other piece there. So again, just to recap, make sure your brand is where you want it to be. Make sure you're associating with the right crowds. Make sure that you aren't putting anything out there that you would want your mom, your grandmother, anyone that you truly care about, any elder that you truly care about to see and not be proud of. In addition to that, just come up with a criteria and prioritize that based on what you know. Be open to new things, because once you get into the workforce, you may think that you actually want to do something, but once you get into that role or that position, you find out that that's not exactly what you wanted. So you have to be open and humble and ready to say that, hey, this didn't work, so let me try something different.
If I can add to that, just to piggyback on all the great information you say, I always tell my mentors, and I am very transparent. I'm sometimes a little too transparent. Brian knows me from SBDC. I could get in trouble for that sometimes, but do not wait until May to look for internships. Do not wait until April to look for internships. I live in Washington, D.C., so from a fiscal year type of conversation, the fiscal year starts October 31st. November 1st, companies know their budget and who they can hire in the next year for internships. Best believe other ethnicities and backgrounds have already put their applications in on that first week in November, and they are already getting acceptance letters. That is the #1 advice I give to all of my mentees that are looking for internships. November, you need to have your packets ready to be sent out, because people are making, believe it or not, decisions before Christmas. So if you're waiting until May saying, hey, I need internships, the money is already spent, everything has been allocated, it's already gone. So that's very, very important. The second piece, just to piggyback on the social media network, I work for Hewlett-Packard. I used to work for Lockheed. I'm in the Intel space. Just because your account is private on social media, please don't think that means anything to anyone. It's cute that people think that their account is private and that no one can see the information that they're putting out there, but trust, I'll say this in the most without getting in trouble, we can see everything. Like, we can. So being private means nothing, and a lot of people mess themselves up by thinking that their account is private and they can say what they want and they can do what they want, but you have no idea how detrimental that can be to you getting an internship, because everything is on the internet, and once you put it out there, you cannot take it back. You can't delete it, you can't refresh, you can't undo. It's out there and the world can see. So if I can leave you with anything, it's please start looking for internships November and December, and please, please watch what you put on social media. It has become a recruiter and a company's biggest, I mean, it's more important than the interviewer at this point, because they can see everything about you, especially if you're trying to get a job in the government or intel space.
Actually, if I could add to that point, one of the things I see, and I see it with young engineers coming up that I'm kind of responsible for, and I'll sum it up this way, is come with the mindset to work. Come ready to work. Don't think you can just sit around, surf the internet, keep your Facebook private. I mean, I don't even think people realize it's become such an enigma in the workplace that it's acceptable. But really, owners know you wasting their money. So come with the mindset to work.
So unfortunately, it seems that Brian is trying to talk, but we cannot hear him at the moment. I know maybe, oh gosh. So of course there's always technical difficulties. Even though we are engineers, we go through this too. Maybe try logging out and logging back in, and we'll try to get back to you and keep the conversation going. Okay. Great.
Tell them to write it down.
Yeah. All right. As you do that, we'll go to the next question. How soon did you create your 5-year career plan or short-term plan, and how often should you update this plan?
I'd say I've kind of reinvented myself as an engineer. Within the electrical discipline, I want to say 4 times. So I kind of redo my 5-year plan every 5 years. I'll be absolutely honest. It came from being laid off. So it wasn't something that I kind of set out to do. It was more kind of thrust upon me due to the job market and looking for work, and kind of goes back to what was mentioned earlier about your brand. Because every step of the way, everything that I did in the past followed me, believe it or not. And so you want to make sure that, the old saying is the same people you meet up are the same people you meet down. So you want to treat them fair the right way. And I've learned that through life experience. I'm not going to say the hard way. I've learned that through life experience to be absolutely true. So always be, to summarize, just always be in the process of revising that plan. Nothing is truly constant. Actually, the only thing that is constant, I think Obama said it best, is change. Everything changes. So be prepared for change.
I started my 5-year plan as soon as I got my first full-time job. And every year that I obtained a performance review, I did a check and balance on that plan to make sure that, 1, that plan is still where I want it to go, and 2, that I was operating against that plan. And at the end of that 5 years, I looked again at another 5 years, but I also started to take a look at where I wanted to be in 2 years. And I took it a step further and say, where do I want to be in 10 years? So I have a wide range of plans, and it's constantly changing. I'm actually reviewing my plan now, so it's ever changing. So I would say as soon as you are set on what you want, start there, make your plan, but don't just leave your plan there. You have to act on your plan.
Great. Next question is it wise to share your career ambitions by everyone, or should you be more selective with this information?
Full transparency, keep your circle tight. Not everyone knows my career aspirations and goals, and not everyone should. I have trusted advisors for certain specific things. Specific things I want to do in my career, I call certain people. So short answer to that is in my own world, I don't share it with everyone. There are 4 people that I share my career path with and aspirations.
So I'll go next, because I'm a little bit of a free spirit when it comes to things like that. I struggle with it still as an adult on exactly when too much is enough and when enough is enough. I do feel that despite popular belief, there is enough room at the top. I don't know why sometimes we feel like we can't, we're the only ones that can get there. So part of me is like, when it comes to my career aspirations, I feel like it has to move, because I'm a fan of putting things out into the universe. But to that same point, everybody doesn't need to know what my aspirations are. Quite frank, because they change. I change daily on what I want to do. I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up, and I am not afraid to say that. And that is why I think I have excelled in my professional life, is because I've always kind of let things naturally and organically evolve when it came to work assignments and things of that nature, because, like I said, I don't know what I want to do. So my career aspiration is really just to be happy with what I do every day. I know that may sound like a fairy tale, and it may, gumdrops and popcorn, but I do feel that if you respect the opinion of who you're telling your career aspirations to, it's fine, tell them. But if it's someone who really don't care, they disagree, then you may want to ask yourself, what is the point, or what is the value of me sharing my career aspirations to this person? But like I said, I do try to make things known, because I know I want to be a project manager of X, Y, and Z. I don't want to hold that to myself, because my manager may be and the opening may come up, and I would like them to, of course, think of me, or people to know that I am looking for something. So if something does come about, they know that I'm looking. But like I said, I struggle with it sometimes, because it's one of those, everybody doesn't need to know, but the right people need to know. And sometimes you may not automatically know that if you're so closed tight with your information. So that's just me.
I'll go off of that. It's key as well. Yeah, circle of influence is key. You definitely want to make sure you're around those that's going somewhere and influencing you before you even share anything. Mentors and sponsors. Mentorship is key. If you really want somebody who's going to help guide you and give you some advice, that might be the one. But you don't want to share with everybody. But if you can get that mentor who can give you some advice. Now, a sponsor is different from a mentor. A sponsor is going to be that one in that room that, when no one else is around is vouch for you, they're going to vouch for you. So you make sure you have that mentor and a sponsor, and you can have more than one mentor and stuff. But those are some key people if you really want to talk about your aspirations. Get that one that can speak on your behalf and vouch for you when no one else is around, as well as work with a mentor who can help guide you as well with your aspirations. So that would be my key points.
And Tiffani, just to say, your sponsor does not have to look like you. 9 out of 10 times your sponsor will not look like you, and that is okay. That is okay. That's all I want to say. Your sponsor is very important, but do not think your sponsor has to look like
All right. Next question is, what advice would you give to yourself right after graduation?
I'll jump in there. Something I still think about daily. Go all the way till you can get a PhD. Get the grad. Right now, truth be told, a graduate degree is the minimum you need nowadays in today's world. So I would stay in school.
Honestly, the same thing that I said before. Be open-minded. I came out of school and I thought I knew what I wanted to do and I was going to go get it, and there was no changing it. I quickly came to realize when I sat in a boardroom and I was doing what I thought I wanted to do, what I told myself I wanted to do, that was not what I wanted to do. So I had to quickly change my direction. So above all, I would say be open-minded. That's what I would tell my younger self upon graduation.
This is Brian. I hope I've worked out the technical difficulties now. If I could speak to my younger self and give myself some advice, I wouldn't necessarily change anything. What I would tell them to do is do what you've done already. And the reason I say that, coming from Alabama and relocating to the Washington, D.C. area, I didn't know what to expect. And as the discussion has already taken place, as I matriculated I went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, and everyone, as an intern, as a co-op student in the engineering field, they didn't look like me. So a lot of the steps that I took, a lot of paths that I've taken, I was going down a dark alley. I couldn't see the end. But one thing through NSBE, through that network that we spoke about earlier, there were individuals that kind of pushed me along the way or kind of held my hand. You know, Brian, keep moving. People are not going to look like you, but you're going down the right path. And as Dashaun stated, some of your sponsors, some of your champions will not look like you. They won't have the same face paint as you. And so those individuals were peers, were colleagues who saw this guy is smart. This guy has an engineering degree. If you're coming out of school with a technical degree or you're in line to receive your bachelor's in engineering, that says a lot. So my advice to myself would keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you've done. And that is just step out there, step out on faith. Don't be afraid to befriend individuals that's not from the same community as you. Sometimes you have to step out of your community for a second in order to get more access so that you can go back to your community and tell others how you can get to another level. One thing that I would if there was some advice and some things that I would do differently, I would say jump through more doors, talk to more people. I tried to speak to a lot of people, I tried to ask a lot of questions coming through. And so the more questions you ask, the more people you speak to, the more doors may unlock for you. So that means you don't have to unlock a door yourself. That means that you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to find the key to a door. If more people know who you are, and notice I said know who you are, because you may know a lot of people, but if people know who you are and if your life is not in accordance with what they want to do, it don't matter how many people you know, they're not going to open the door for you because you can taint their reputation. So one thing you have to ensure that what you're doing is in line with other people or what they're doing, so that when you approach them, when you talk to them, when you inquire about what it is they do or how can you get to the next level, they may see you as a young man or a young woman that all they need is a little access. And what they may do is open the door for you and say, go this way. And so if I could give myself some advice and I would do something differently, I would say talk to more people. Because as one of my colleagues stated, we don't know everything at 23, 22, 21, we don't. But the more we inquire, the more we sit at the feet of people who have access, who have resources, who have knowledge, we may open many, many more doors that we can be a trailblazer through earlier. We don't have to be 30. We don't have to be 40. We don't have to be 50. We can be in our mid-20s and reach goals, achieve levels of success that our predecessors may not have because they had to actually break down the doors themselves. The door is open right now for technical professionals, especially minorities. All we have to do is punch the right buttons, talk to the right people, open ourselves up to criticisms, open ourselves up to working for experience and not for pay, taking the lower paying jobs to get the exposure to build your black book, build your network, because that's going to help you long term, and the pay is going to come. But right now you need the experience, you need the exposure, you need the connections. And once you have that, then the world is yours.
So Brian, you took what I was gonna say. Thank you.
I've been waiting for a long time to say that.
I know, it's fine. I'm just teasing you, but I was gonna be completely blunt and honest. For myself, it was the money will come. When I was straight out of college, coming from New Orleans, moving to DC, I had my offers on the table, and I did that typical, which one is going to give me the most money? And millennials, we already have the stigma, the stereotype is that we want everything now. And if I would have talked to my younger self, I would have just reassured the money will come. The money will come. Focus on the integrity and actual liking the work that you do. There are a lot of rich, unhappy, overworked people, and there are a lot of people that are content with their job, and you could never tell what their salary is. Someone is always going to offer you more money. So if you're always just chasing money, you are always going to be running in a circle and you'll never be satisfied. So if I would have just told myself, focus on the integrity of the work. Do you like the work? When you're in an interview, yes, they're interviewing you, but you need to be interviewing them to see, am I going to be happy here? Is this something that's going to sustain me over a long period of time? So to my younger self, focus on the integrity of the work. Like Brian said, unpaid internships are so frowned upon, but you have no idea how that experience can put you ahead of somebody in the long run. Especially with the failing budgets that we're having right now, we're going to see a whole lot more unpaid internships. And I'm going to be blunt, if us keep shying away from them and not taking them, and others are taking those positions, when our budgets go back up, who do you think is going to be more qualified to have more experience, and who's going to get more money in the end? That person that did that unpaid internship is going to probably get a little bit more money than you who said, I don't want to do that. So myself, the money will come, chill out, you'll get there, pay your dues.
All right, great. Our next question is, what did you consider when deciding to go to graduate school or work or both? And how do you portray professionalism while in graduate school?
My path was, I was sort of tired of school at first, but my mom encouraged me, and everybody has their different paths, to go to grad school right away. Get it on out the way before the family and all that comes and everything. So that's the path I decided to go. Grad school is so different than undergrad. It's a totally different mindset once you get in there. It depends. I mean, I did an internship graduate while I was in grad school at the same time and did the internship. So, I mean, professionalism is going to come. You're in a different mindset. You're there. You're more focused on what area you want to focus on. So it's going to be a different mindset when you do grad school from that end. So professionalism is what it is. Take advantage of that network opportunity while you're there in grad school, because you're exposed to all different non-traditional, you're exposed to a whole different mindset because everybody's there from different paths and avenues. So I would say it depends on the individual whether you want to go straight on or you can go to work and have them pay for it. You have that option. My brother's an engineer as well. He went and waited and got a project management degree and got the company to pay for it. So, I mean, you have different options as well. So it's up to you as an individual, but know what you want to do. I decided to do the engineering management route. I was sort of done with mechanical engineering and said I wanted to do more of the business side and mix it together. So you can look at whether you want to continue on your technical or if you want to get the MBA or the engineering management and tie in both at the same time, because I did take some MBA classes at the same time. But, you know, decide what works for you, what path you're trying to go. It depends on the individual.
If I may add to what Tiffani stated, I was burnt out. It took me 5.5 years, and I was burnt out. But before I finished undergrad, I had started interning with a particular company. So after the completion of the internship, I was hired, and I worked an additional 5 years. I told myself on graduating, I'm not going back to school. I'm done. You know, I'm gonna just work and maybe pick up some certifications along the way and just make it happen. But 5 years in, as a contractor, contracts in, and you get put on a different contract. But I saw then that my career wasn't being shifted in the way that I wanted to. I had no leverage. I had work experience, but the work experience was with what my employer told me to do. So then I decided to take matters to my own hands and to pursue a graduate degree. At the time, I'm still working with this employer now, going on 8 years to include my internship. So I looked within the resources within the company and saw they had, number one, they had tuition assistance, and number two, they had an executive MBA program. So once again, as I stated earlier, I knew a lot of people there, but I made sure they knew who I was in terms of my character, my integrity. So I applied for the executive MBA program. I didn't get it accepted the first year, but the second year I got accepted, and they paid for the entire program. Now in this program, I'm the only African American male, one of the youngest in the program. Everyone else is senior leaders, you know, CFOs and all of that. But the point I want to make is they paid for it. Now I'm no longer with that company, but they can't take the degree away from me. No matter where I go, the education, the degree is going with me. But that was one thing about going into grad school or starting to work and getting the experience, because sometimes you may get burned out of school, and if you don't have any type of work experience, you're competing with someone who may have some work experience. And if you go straight through university, even grad school, you may still come out, employers weighing the option of this person has work experience and some certifications or a master's degree. But you have a master's degree as well, but only a master's degree, all education. But one thing that I liked about the employer paying for it, because a lot of companies now do have the tuition assistance. Grad school, as Tiffani stated, it's much different than undergrad, but it's a lot costly as well. What I've seen, what my fees were that the company paid for. But it's a good thing that if you can get some assistance with the employer as well. And so that's the route that I took, and I would definitely say if that's the route you want to take, go for it, because there's money out there and companies are willing to pay for their employees, but you have to show them that you're a dedicated employee as well.
I'll piggyback, and I promise I'll keep this one quick. So I'm joking, but I'm serious. I don't pay for school. When I tell my nieces and nephews that, I'm being funny, but I'm being serious at the same time. I have never paid for my education. I had full academic scholarship to Norfolk State. And the only smart thing I did when I actually did pick my job straight out of college was I went with Lockheed Martin and I got into their engineering leadership development program. And it was mandated that we got our master's degree. So I didn't really have a choice. So I'm glad I did that. And then I went to George Washington University. And if you guys don't know George Washington University, it is one of the most expensive private schools in the United States. So if your employer is going to pay for that, like Brian said, jump on that. I did not realize how important it was not to have student debt until I got out of college and I talked to my friends that have student debt, and they tell me about Sallie Mae and Navient and the fact that I don't have to deal with those problems. Thank you. As Tiffani said, I got my PMP and I got my EIDL. My job paid for that too. These are very expensive certifications, but like Brian said, they can't take them away from you everywhere. So get as much as you can get out of your employer as possible. Did I want to go to grad school directly after college? No, but I also knew that I wanted a company for it. I did not want to do that. Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to find out what's important for you. But if your employer is going to pay for it, let your employer pay for it. It is priceless. You will not understand how priceless it is until you hear the horror stories that your friends tell you about Sallie Mae.
Yeah, I definitely know how that feels. I'm going through that now with conversations with my friends. Okay, our next question is, how did you know when to switch companies?
For me, it was pretty easy. They kind of gave me a box and said, "Here's the door." That's just kidding. But I think one of the things that I think someone mentioned it earlier is you want to be in an environment that you enjoy. There will be stress. That's just part of the job. It's just part of life in general. But you don't want to. I can share a personal experience. I had a position in which I literally worked there for 5 years, and right around 5 years, management changed. Essentially, the culture of the environment changed, and I was waking up dreading going to work. If you start to feel like work is work, then it might be time to start looking somewhere else.
If I can add to what Ken just stated, I was with SAIC. That's the company I interned with, and that's the company that paid for my executive MBA. 4 months after I completed the executive MBA, company cut me. So I didn't have a choice. You know, just like Ken stated, they said, okay, here's your box, here's the door. One thing about that company, they split into Leidos and SAIC. So that's one of the reasons why we separated. But one thing I would say, when you get with the company, years ago, like my mom, you know, all that, people got with the company and they probably worked for that one company for 30 or 40 years and then retired. My advice to you, get with the company, work as hard as you can. Don't just stay on a particular contract or do a particular assignment until they tell you to move. Do it very well and ask for more work. Ask for different types of opportunities to gain more exposure, to learn more about the business, to build your skill set. And if you can't, if the company is tapped out at what they can offer you, then I think it's time for you to take your career in your own hands and seek another employer and do the exact same thing. Work really hard for 6 months on your project and say, hey, I've done this. I've done it very well. My work shows for itself. Can I have additional assignments, additional roles, and continue to build your skill set? Eventually, maybe you get to a company where you're matriculated up the chain of that company and now you're a boss. And so you don't want to leave because you're comfortable, you know, where you are. You know, you're calling the shots. But early on, I would say work extremely hard, stay with the company as long as they allow you to learn more about the business and to build your skill set.
I would say make sure that you don't burn any bridges in that process. I want to put that out there, because if you're in that same industry, sometimes it's a small world that you might run into them again. So if you do, just make sure you don't burn any bridges. I'm gonna put that out there.
So I will say I left by choice. It took me a while. I thought I was going to retire at Lockheed Martin. I never thought I was going to leave. All my friends left. I woke up and I didn't really know anyone, because they had all left. But I played around. I did the interviews. I lightly looked. But I think I saw this on LinkedIn this morning. People leave companies because of management. It's not the work. It's not the cafeteria food. It's not the parking spot. It is management. And what happened was I met my manager at HP, and she blew me away. You're very lucky to find this. Like they say, you're very lucky to find a soulmate. You're very lucky to find a manager that's also your sponsor. And my manager is that. And I'm talking to this lady, and I'm having this conversation, and I'm like, you are an amazing person. My manager has a way where she can talk about you, and you're sitting next to her, and you're looking at yourself like, wow, I didn't even know I was that great. Like, she's just that good. And she's an advocate for high energy people. And if you can't tell, that is me to the T. I'm trying to, control it for this webinar, but that's what she likes. So that to me said, okay, maybe I need to step out on faith. Maybe there is something over there that I might need to do. I can't be scared. I can't hide on this, I can't hide behind Lockheed, shoulders for too long. And for me, when the work stopped getting challenging, that's when it was time to go. When everyone was around me, were comfortable, and nobody wanted to do more, that's when I said, okay, it's time to go. I'm not about being regular. I'm not about being normal. I'm not about being mediocre. So if everybody wants to be mediocre and they're cool, it's time for me to bounce. So for me, it was a personal choice. And like I said, once I met that manager, I felt comfortable enough to leave because I trust her. So for me, it was a mixture of a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, for me, it was the same thing. I actually had a similar sort of situation. My mentor was actually at my previous company and then ultimately brought me over to my current company. Just because we talked about relationships and mentors and sponsors. He is my mentor and we have a really good relationship with my sponsor. But he asked me some very poignant questions like, are you happy? Do you still want to stay there? Is it still meeting your criteria? Is the environment still the same? Is it meeting your cultural requirements? So went down my list and was like, you're absolutely right. I'm comfortable. And in order for me to continue to grow, I needed to no longer be comfortable. I needed to be uncomfortable because being uncomfortable for me meant that I was being challenged. Meant that every day when I woke up, it was like, okay, so what problem am I going to solve today? And that was my challenge. At that point, I knew I had to step outside of my comfort zone and make that move. As scary and as uncomfortable as it was something that I just had to do for myself.
If I may add, I love what Tiffani and Dashaun has stated. And even what Kenisha stated, their moves wasn't just to move because you want to move, because as Tiffani stated, if you burn a bridge, if you burn your bridge in a certain industry, you can get blackballed, but a lot of our moves it was because we wanted more work. We were not being challenged enough, and we wanted to continue to grow. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a financial move, but you have to weigh your options and really consider, if you have a mentor, if you have a sponsor, someone you can confide in, I would definitely say inquire about them instead of just saying, oh, I want to move to make more money. Really consider, is the making more money going to make your lifestyle worse? It's going to cause you to be stressed out at home. Is your work-life balance is going to be off kilter? So I would definitely say don't burn any bridges if you decide to make a move, but make sure that if you make a move to a different company, that is strategic. You've thought about it, and we're engineers. So number one, we should be in the business of building bridges, not burning them. So make sure that if you decide to leave, make sure that you still have a bridge, that in the event that a great or better opportunity that may arise at the previous employer, that you have a path that you can go back and hopefully in a better position.
Okay, our next question. As previously stated, we're in the year of millennials. We're always on our phones, on online profile sites. So with LinkedIn, how can we use that to our advantage? Use it for networking and exploring career opportunities.
I know one way is LinkedIn is starting to be the biggest thing. If you really want to use social media from a professional standpoint, that would probably be the next method to use. Get a LinkedIn profile. A lot of employers and stuff are looking at that now. So if you want to look from a professional standpoint, that's probably the route to go. But keep in mind that employers are also looking at, like Kenisha said, your social media and all of that plays a role with it. If you really want to use it, I would say get a LinkedIn profile and try to build upon that. It's a good avenue is what I would say.
One thing that I've also started to recognize, especially with my circle on LinkedIn too, you can tell what people are interested in. So when I look at my mentors and my colleagues, I can tell what interests them by the articles and the blogs that they like, because people can actually see that activity too if you put it out there. But that's something that from a LinkedIn profile perspective that I've also seen, and I also try to use when I look at candidates when we're recruiting, or I try to reach out to other colleagues if I'm trying to do something else. I know that they're also interested in that, so I use their LinkedIn profile as a stepping stone for myself.
Also, what I would add to the conversation is, as has already been stated, LinkedIn is a professional social media platform. Now, I had some of my friends, everyone's trying to get on every social media platform just about, regardless of what you do or what you don't do in terms of your career. And I've had individuals that I know request to be linked in with me. I know what they're about. I know what their career aspirations are. And I had to respectfully decline their invitation, because this is not Facebook. This is not any other social media platform where we're just going to be social buddies. No. So you have to use it, but use it wisely. Don't link up with everyone that requests to be your friend, even if you know them, because if they're not above what you're trying to do or in an area that you're trying to go, they're probably not going to help you get to the next level. So just be a little cautious about accepting any and everyone to your LinkedIn profile.
And ditto everything you said, Brian. My only other addition would be is to make sure that your picture is professional. Just think of LinkedIn as a virtual interview. Recruiters do most of their recruiting from LinkedIn. I'm perfectly honest. I got recruited for my job at Hewlett Packard Enterprise from LinkedIn. I didn't even know if it was real. That's how, new I was to LinkedIn at the time. When a recruiter reached out to me, I had to literally look him up and make sure he was a legitimate person, because LinkedIn, people are giving you job offers via LinkedIn. So make sure your picture is professional. All of your information is up to date. And I got some really good advice from a social media expert. Sometimes you're going to want to reach out to people that you may not know, you may not know off the street. Utilize that box. It says, I would like to add you to my professional network. It's already pre-populated. You don't have to keep that. It is an editable box. You can put why you want to connect to that person. You can say, hey, I heard you at the NSBE webinar, and I really appreciated the things you had to say. I would love to be in touch with you on a professional level. You can edit that box. And I have found, at least with connecting to mentors or people in my field, it's more meaningful when a person can know why you could want to connect with them versus the normal, I'd like to add you to the professional network. As Brian said, if I don't know you, I might not accept that request. But utilize that box to your advantage. I actually didn't even know that box was editable until the guy that I heard speak said, hey, you can actually write what you want to write in there. I think it's almost like 250 characters. It's kind of like a Twitter limit, but you can really make your request more meaningful. And like Brian said, it's not Facebook. People are starting to gravitate, putting a little bit more personal things on LinkedIn. That's fine, but I would stay away from that because I know Hewlett Packard uses it for recruiting. When I get people on my desk for new jobs, I usually put their name in LinkedIn and come up. So it is a tool that recruiters and companies are using heavily. So it's very, very powerful. So don't underestimate it because you think it's like Facebook. It is a powerful tool for finding a job. And don't be afraid to use the 30-day premium. It's amazing. You don't have to buy it afterwards. And you can still get to see the full functionality.
As we deal with technology, another tool for resume-wise, there is video resumes. That can be another tool if they want to utilize that from a technology standpoint. That's starting to be a new thing. So consider that as another avenue to advertise yourself from video resumes. So just putting that out there when you talk about technology.
All right, that actually was our last question for tonight. I want to thank you all for participating. There was a lot of good, valuable advice. I'm pretty sure all the collegians watching in appreciated the insight that you guys had to give. For those who are not able to watch tonight, this video will be posted to the Region 2 NSBE YouTube channel, so they can always come back and view later just in case they might have missed something earlier on or they came in halfway throughout the channel. But it will be available for everybody to listen in. Again, I want to thank you all for participating, and I hope everybody has a good night. Deuces, and stay tuned. Thank you, guys.